Hello and welcome to Gargoyle's Quest Low Percent on the Switch. 3, 2, 1, let's go. So a decent chunk of this run is going to be very similar to a normal Gargoyle's Quest run, at least compared to any percent, but the biggest difference you're going to notice here in this run is that we're playing in English. That's going to be explained later, but essentially there is a English exclusive exploit that allows us to have less than the usually forced power-ups. But we'll have a lot of Gargoyle's Quest basics. The main mechanics of Gargoyle's Quest are always going to be this strict hover movement control. You don't have very strong wing strength, especially in this run. And you always have to be very careful. We are quite fragile in this game. Low percent does get all of the health pickups. And it is going to be our jump strength and our wing strength that is going to be significantly reduced over the course of the game. Yeah, we're dipping down here, making sure to grab this health before the boss. And this is going to be a big mash fest, so you're able to shoot another projectile as soon as your first projectile disappears. This allows us to consistently damage boost and just spam bosses down. So that's one level down, a few to go. Here, after clearing the first level, it brings us to our first overworld map. The overworld in Gargoyle's Quest has the unfortunate attribute of random encounters. Fortunately, we got pretty lucky here, so we didn't get anything until the first forced encounter, which is pretty straightforward. Combination of damage boosts and killing those guys. They're not too bad, no projectiles, die in 1 health, pretty straightforward. But here, we're going to be having a random encounter. This one I'm also going to be doing because it's fairly quick with this particular setup, but there's a pretty wide variety of random encounters that we can get at this point. It is one of the few and unfortunate pieces of RNG in this run, but there's definitely a lot of variety here. So, just as an example, we're going to die here because, as compared to before, we got no jingle, and we got no victory jingle, and we got about the same amount of text. So it's significantly faster if you've got the life to spare to take the death on a random encounter. Here we're talking to Jark. He's going to give us one of our first objectives to go find his Kremlin stick in the Monster Tower. Monster Tower being the 2nd level. And this is the only upgrade we're going to get for the majority of the game. We're not going to get another upgrade in this run until literally the last level. Another random encounter, unfortunately. This one would have been a pretty good one to take the death on, but unfortunately we only have so many lives. But we're able to take the damage boost and slip behind those guys with the shields. Another little mini stage here. This is what would usually require you to get the jump upgrade. It's totally possible to do this without the jump upgrade. The task does it, and I've done it before, but we are also going to be skipping the first wing upgrade, and the Monster Tower without a jump upgrade is very slow, not TAS. And it's currently not humanly possible to do a perfect bridge skip, i.e. be missing the jump upgrade as well as the wing strength upgrade. We're going to be just skipping the wing strength upgrade. unfortunate damage there, but we're able to slip around this guy and take him out. Here's another forced encounter. We want to take this guy out because later we're going to be using a death warp that takes us back to this next level. And with this set of enemies out of the way, we're able to make it faster than going the long way around to the south, which would have no forced encounters, but a longer travel distance. Pretty bad luck with the random encounters today, but fortunately we're getting to see a lot of the variety. Right into the next level. This is the monster tower. It's significantly more vertical than the other stages that we've had, with a lot more tricky enemies. And we need to avoid these trees because when you shoot them, they end up spraying a burst of projectiles, which are no fun to deal with. And here we're going to deal with that fly, always tricky. And here's an interesting bit. If we keep that moving platform up top just barely on screen, but not completely on screen, we can have it turn around significantly earlier, which will get us into position for that climb. Passing another checkpoint, which can be useful if you've taken damage. We're going to need 2 health for this boss coming up. And unlike the first stage and many stages after this, there are no health drops, health pickups in this entire stage. Right, here we're going to rapidly approach this first one. It's 1 down. Then we're going to damage boost here. Take it out. This one can be a little tricky, so we're going to play it a little safe. Wait for the bottom one to fire its shot. And there we go. Monster tower down. Pretty clean, just need to go through here. And for our efforts, we are rewarded with the Gremlin Stick, which is our objective that we're trying to achieve for the Baron Jark. But we also got a new attack, the Blockbuster. One of the other cool mechanics of Gargoyle's quest is that you have a series of attacks, which all have unique in-game level functionality. This is the Blockbuster, which, as it says on the tin, breaks blocks. Only certain blocks, though, which we'll be seeing a little bit later. But also, it doubles our damage output, since we can have 2 of these projectiles on screen instead of just 1. So you can see just how much faster we're going through some of these stages, or some of these random encounters. Now, a unique thing about this bridge, it is the only level in the game that you are required to go through both forwards and backwards, which I always found really interesting. I kind of wish more of the game did it, but it's a neat little quirk of this level. And we'd usually have to go over it a 3rd time to go back up north after we return to Jark, but this is where that damage, or that death warp that I was talking about earlier, comes into play. But unfortunately, we need to talk to Jark before we can death warp, so even though we're in the ideal position with 0 lives, we can't die on any of these random encounters, because we still got to make it all the way down to the bottom. But we've made it to Jark. Make sure to use the use command, so that we're using the Gremlin Stick on it. Get a nice big lore dump here. So we find out this isn't an upgrade, this is just a plot progression item. But now we know that we need to go use it on the king. And fortunately, that's actually a really well placed random encounter. So we can just die on this random encounter, don't even need to make it to the bridge. And this is going to game over us, which sends us back to the last checkpoint. Each town has a person you can talk to get a checkpoint, but otherwise the checkpoints are after stages, such as the Monster Tower, full stages. So we're able to take that Death Warp and zip up here pretty quickly. Usually this person would block you if you talk to them early, but after you've helped Jark out, they're able to get you a armor upgrade. Going up, going up, going up. Another pretty straightforward level. Bit of terrain to stomp across. Hopefully we get lucky. Now here, we would usually go to the right and pick up a wing strength upgrade for normal plot progression. For any percent, we'd still skip this wing strength upgrade and do a trick called bridge skip. Even in the whole low percent run, with minimal upgrades, bridge skip continues to be the most difficult trick of this run, and easily the most intimidating as well. It's roughly 15 frame perfect inputs in a row. Have about a 3 frame window for each of these 15 inputs. So we're going to see if we can get it here. And the reason why you want to skip the wings is usually there's a very helpful NPC who says, oh, your wings are too weak, you can't make it over. But, fortunately for us, the NPC has no regard for our safety and just lets us by. This lets us skip this upgrade entirely, where usually you'd need to do a fight there. And there we go. Nice, clean bridge skip. Definitely one of the higher concentration points of the run. And now the trick is to just not panic. Keep cool and carry on. Another encounter, unfortunately. And here, especially for marathons and the like, I tried to not take too much forced deaths, just to make sure I've got a little extra leeway to play it safe, especially on low percent, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong here. And almost there. Okay, here we go. No more random encounters for at least a little bit, as we enter the king's castle for the next stage. Bada boom. So here, for an any percent run, this is still going to be quite similar. Now we can see the real benefit of bringing the block breaker. As you can see, those weird round rocks are the ones that we can break through. And we want to make sure to avoid those yellow stone or red stones, because those actually trigger a bunch of traps that we're avoiding. Here's a tricky part. We need to do a Sword of Flutter to make sure we can cross that. And also be very careful not to die to that skeletal gargoyle. It's kind of hard to tell just by watching, but there's actually a strong wind that's blowing us backwards here. You can sort of see the grass was rustling. And now for the next boss, we can just position ourselves just in such a way so that his attacks hit that block instead of hitting us. And it's just another mash fest. And smooth sailing. Now this is where things get weird. So we're going to use the candle on the king. But there's going to be a text prompt here where he asks if we want to save the realm. And we're going to say no. Now this is a unique trait about English, where on English, you can simply just say no. And he lets you out of this conversation. In Japanese, in the Japanese version of this game, that text actually loops. So it prevents you from escaping that dialogue without getting an upgrade. But in English, for one reason or another, you don't have to. So now we're down 2 wing strength upgrades and 1 jump upgrade. To make the next dungeon a bit more manageable, because there's significantly more damage boosts. Uh-oh. Didn't damage boost correctly on that guy, unfortunately. Since the next level has significantly more damage boosts, we're going to be getting this Armor of the Guile early, because we need just a tiny bit more health in order to get through there unscathed. Ta-da! So now we have 4 health. Ooh, an immediate glutton encounter. That's unfortunate. But at this point of the game, we are able to clear these encounters pretty quick. So they're not as bad as they were. The really rough encounters are the ones you get before the first 2 stages. Because you have no damage, you have no health for damage boosting, and you have no strength upgrades. Here's another variant. There's a hidden potato down here. Another quick damage boost and mash. And this desert's also kind of weird. Every time you hear that sort of grating noise, the winds were actually blowing us in a direction, so you have to go a very specific path. Now this is the sand pit. It's a much more vertical stage as well, but this one is a drop for most of it. Usually we'd be able to make it through this fall unscathed, but we are going to need to take at least 1 bit of damage because we run out of wing strength very quickly now. We're running out of wing strength very quick, and we're also cannot jump very high at all. Oop, that's bad, actually. So we needed that health. So I'm just going to take a death here and go back to the checkpoint. Which is going to mess with things a little bit, but I don't think we've lost too much time here. But you need as much health as you can get on this particular run, because we have exactly 1 health restore, which fortunately we can avoid here. Usually we'd be trying to avoid that bit, but here we're going to take a damage boost here, which lets us get around this guy. So now we're at exactly as much health as we need to make it through here. And this boss is really tight. You basically have 1 iframe window, and it's just go as fast as you can. But we're rewarded with Candle of Darkness for progression. And we have the power of the Claw. The Claw is another really strong attack, similar to the Brick Breaker. We're able to have 2 on screen at once, which is nice. But we're also able to use it to shoot spikes and make little temporary platforms. Again, nice little bit of downtime. Most of this section is a little bit of a lore dump to get some backstory about Firebrand and this game. Another nice little section, no random encounters there. That's always pretty good. And here, this is the fight that we would usually do for doing the bridge, but we fortunately skipped it with bridge skip. But we're also significantly stronger now. The Claw does 2 damage per hit instead of 1 like the original Fire and the Brick Break. Another quirk of the random encounters, which I haven't really explained yet, is the encounter doesn't end until 2 criteria are met. Every enemy has to be dead, but also every projectile in the air has to be gone. So that's why we can save so much time when we get more health, because we're able to damage ourselves with those projectiles to get them off the screen faster. And it adds a lot of interesting variants you don't really think about over the course of the first couple levels, because each of these random encounters you do just a little bit differently, depending on what your power is at the time. Another big lore dump. What we're finding out here is essentially that over the course of the game, the NPCs talk about Firebrand and how they are a rare red gargoyle, or a strange red gargoyle. This big lore dump, we're finding out that the red blaze that we've been looking for this whole game is in fact a mutant gargoyle, and we are in fact one of those mutant gargoyles, a descendant of a hero of the past. Which makes Gargoyle's Quest 2 a prequel, if you didn't know that. Nice, clean encounter. The chariots act a lot like the shields, except, much bigger, so you have to make sure to get behind them, which we usually achieve with damage boosts. Now here's where it gets really interesting. This level has a lot of really tight jumps and damage boosts. So we're going to grab this wall to get as close as possible and damage boost off of the lava. Ooh, unfortunately, I didn't position myself quite right. But this is right next to a checkpoint, so we're able to be a little more aggressive. Ooh, it's an unfortunate random encounter. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. This is also a spot where if you get a random encounter there, it definitely helps to just take the damage, because you're going to respawn right there anyway. So let's try this again. There we go. And take damage from this guy. Actually, we're going to get a little bit more height. There we go. Perfect. So as you can see, very tight jumps, very tight damage boosts, since you can just barely make it through all of this. but we're fortunately not losing too much time here. Oh, unlucky. But fortunately, we're pretty beefed up on power here, so the random encounter doesn't take too long. The worst random encounter that you can get in this section is actually the first boss. The first boss can actually show up in this small little stretch of overworld. And it's the worst encounter you can get, because the only thing that damages the first boss is the basic attack. So it's a menu, it's a victory, it's a whole mess. This is another quick drop. This level is actually pretty interesting, where you can end up going forward or backwards through it, depending on which of these caves you come through. But since we know the right cave to go through, we only have to go through this once. Using the claw to climb up a little bit faster. You definitely have to be very careful there, because since we can't jump very high, we can't jump high enough to get the claw shots off screen, so we need to be very careful with how many of those are on screen at a time. More really tight jumps, we're just going to jump straight into it. Use the claw to get a little bit of extra height, and continue these flutters. Here, the game definitely expects you to be a bit stronger by a wide margin. Very carefully damage boost there. We're going to be taking 1 damage here, so we can fall through these chains. Again, this is going to be a really awkward spot where we need to make sure we jump high enough so that we have all this stuff. And a lot of this level is lag management, making sure that enemies line up. Ooh, that's unfortunate. There we go. Bada boom. And kill this guy before he manages to get off shot. Oh, shoot. There we go. Okay. Little nervous there, but nothing we can't handle. And here we're going to need to do 2 damage boosts. 1 just to make it through the corridor, and 1 to sneak past that drill. Voila. Again, a little bit more unfortunate lag from the trap. And here we're going to need to... We have a very fortunate health here. This stage actually has a lot of health, so we've got a little bit of wiggle room. But everything's still pretty tight. Bada boom. And here, this is a surprisingly tight jump, so you do need to go through the wall. And time for Rushafell. Whew, okay. Definitely messed that fight up. What you're supposed to do is stop in air so that you can damage him, and then once you run out of wing strength, land on his shoulder, take the damage boost, and that allows you to clean up the rest of the fight. Unfortunately, I didn't fall low enough for those initial set of hits, but I was able to do it back up fairly cleanly. And here we finally get our upgrades. So after the whole game, we're going from jump strength 2 to jump strength 4, I believe, and we're going from wing strength 1 to wing strength 4. So we're able to jump really, 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 really high, and we're also able to have just fly forever. Here's a nice little cheeky thing I like to do. It's not that much faster, but it looks cool. You're able to fly under the stage, there we go. Not first try, but not too bad all in all. And it only saves a little bit of time, because now that we have infinite wing strength, we can complete this by either flying over the stage or flying under the stage. And personally, I think flying under the stage looks much better. Right, and this is the finale. So this is where the runs kind of line up again. Low percent in this case being how many stages can you do with how many upgrades. Unfortunately, it's not possible to go through the entire game with no upgrades, but it's still a pretty interesting challenge nonetheless. Unfortunately took some damage there, so that's going to mess with one of our damage boosts. But fortunately for this stage, taking damage isn't super punishing in a ton of places. Ideally, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using damage boosts in order to prevent the need for swapping back and forth. Because this level is designed to use your whole toolkit, and it's honestly a super cool final level in that regard. Gotta be careful with those flies. Drop low to get less shots required. Damage boost here, so we can make this jump instead of having to menu. So we can just go straight into more Brick Break. Usually you'd have to swap to the claw there. Here we can just jump straight up instead of using the claw. And we're going to damage boost off of these spikes, again go straight up. Dodge the skeleton dude. And now we're on to the final boss. Here is the only other point in the game that you say no here. Every other prompt in the game other than, you know, low percent and going through, you say no. If you say yes, he strips you of all of your power, and it makes the fight impossible. Fortunately, you respawn right in this room. If you die, it's not too punishing, but you have to say no, you don't want to join him in order to do this fight properly. And we just set up into a pre-position, and then inch a little bit closer, and now he's dead. Pretty straightforward. Just a little bit more dialogue, and we're gonna wrap this run up. We have killed the evil king, we've rescued the realm, and time is going to be when it fades to white and starts the credits. Oh, I also forgot to mention, this is a whole prequel to Ghosts and Goblins, so the king says, oh, hey, you can have Earth, go take over Earth, and then Ghosts and Goblins starts. So Brager was defeated, and his power over the realm vanished, because we are triumphant. So, thank you all for watching. This has been Gargoyle's Quest Low Percent. Hope you enjoyed the show.